Is the real world getting you down? Waking up in the morning, reading the news and seeing it's not the best? Try escapism. You can go fishing, drive a boat, fly, and the most absurd, unrealistic of all, relax. I'm Joe, a former games industry professional, and today we're going up a cozy mountain with a short hike for the Xbox Game Pass on PC. A Short Hike was originally released in 2019 for PC. It came to the Switch in 2020 and then the PS4 and Xbox One in 2021. 2019 was an interesting year for games. Very creative and unorthodox games like Death Stranding, Control and Outer Wilds got massive attention. But contrasting that, the year was also a confirmation that microtransactions and free-to-play were here to not just stay, but dominate. The top 10 highest grossing games of the year were all free to play, with Fortnite leading the charge with a revenue of over $3 billion. So, where does that leave A Short Hike? Well, it was critically acclaimed, it was nominated and won awards, it was brought to Game Pass in 2023, so in a world filled with battle passes, it was successful. This is usually the part where I say the company that developed it. This game was mainly made by one fella with the help of 3 artist friends and a composer. Adam Robinson Yu started work on this game in December 2018. He was convinced that short games could be successful too after playing Minute and The Haunted Island, a frog detective game. He received funding from Humble Bundle, a company best known for its bundles of games sold with money split between charity and the game devs. Whatever I say in this video, there is nothing but the utmost respect to the people who worked on this game, as I know that making any game is a huge undertaking. But to do it without a massive company developing it is immense. This is an open world game where exploring is the main point of the game. It's an adventure game that doesn't challenge the player, but allows the player to escape to a friendlier world when the real world gets tough. It has elements of Animal Crossing and to a certain extent Legend of Zelda games. The main character, Claire, is a young anthropomorphic bird who's off to spend a few days with her aunt at a national park. The game begins with her mum dropping her off at a ferry station, where Claire will take the ferry to the park. There are plenty of random animals who all have their own little narrative that's discovered through talking or doing quests with them. The game is theoretically endless, but the main storyline is to get up to the peak of the mountain to get phone reception, because you're waiting on a very important call. When I first started playing, I actually got a puppet combo horror vibe from the main menu. Getting into the game, I instantly got lost, and I guess I'm a guy who likes having an objective rather than just taking it easy. This isn't to say that's a negative on this game, it's more that it's made for someone who's a bit more of a free spirit when it comes to games. I spent about 30 minutes getting back to the start, just to realise that this game is completely open world and I didn't need to do that. That's on me. I really did like the look of the game and how the main character handled. The game is very hands-off when it comes to its open world. It wants you to explore as you see fit, rather than it dictating where you should go. It utilizes some really great movement mechanics to achieve this exploration. The climbing, flying, and even the running feel really smooth. The stamina system is based on how many golden feathers you have. The more you have, the more powerful and free you feel. When you're not just flying around, there's mini activities you can do, and you can clearly see the massive Animal Crossing inspiration here. My favourite one, as always with games like this, is fishing, and this game nails it if you consider that it's not meant to be a challenging game. The world is actually surprisingly big for such a small game, and the space is used quite well, whether that's a secret tunnel, beautiful views, or just a treasure hunt. Honestly, it's quite a nice world to be part of. This is where the game may fall down for some people. It's a really calm, pleasant world, but that means there's no real risk, there's no challenge, and for some of us that can end up being boring. I have to be completely honest and say that I did end up bored. When I played Stardew Valley, there was a drive to continue playing because I wanted the perfect farm. I wanted to rebuild the community centre. There was also a bit of challenge when you went into the mines. When I played Animal Crossing, there was a drive there too. I wanted to get cool items for my house, fill the museum with all the bugs, fossils and fish. Fishing in that game was quite a challenge as well, if I remember correctly. I also felt like with Animal Crossing, it was my own virtual home where people could come and visit me and hang out. Unfortunately for this game, there's none of that for me. Yeah, there's plenty of activities in this game, I get that, but I wasn't naturally drawn to them as I was with the previous two games I mentioned. There's also more investment in the other two games as you create your own personal world to live in. I think another big difference is, while I love escapism, I also love people, and this game does not have multiplayer. I played Stardew Valley with others, I played Animal Crossing with others, and I think that's what kept me going for the long run with those games. The game is also very short. It lives up to the name. Once I got back to the Ann after getting lost, I took about 30 minutes to finish the game. Now, I completely understand. This game isn't about completing it. I'm just trying to point out that you may run out of things to do fairly quickly. There was also a slight issue I had with immersion. To use or switch items, you had to pause the game and select them. If the game used the shoulder buttons to switch between items or something like that, then it would have been a lot more immersive. I also had some issues with the camera in that it changes angle automatically around the island. This is due to a tool in Unity, but at times I fell or I just lost where I was because of the angle change. This is a very minor issue though. When all is said and done, what I've stated comes down to preference rather than fact. And I know there's a lot of people out there that prefer these risk-free games. I also want to emphasize that these comments are me evaluating a game like it was any other game. But this game isn't any other game. It was done mainly by one dude who's a lot more talented than I am. When it comes down to the visuals, there's not much for me to say, except for the game is really lovely to look at. The colour palette is based on Canada, which is where the developer's actually from. There's a range of pixel selection as well, which I found interesting. I feel like it adds character to the game. Now, the audio. Again, not much to say except wow. Nailed it. The music changes depending on what you're doing or where you are, which is really cool. There was also apparently a Studio Ghibli influence in the music, which in my opinion is perfect when you're going for that cozy vibe. There's no voice acting in this game, which is completely understandable, and it actually isn't a downside. The animal voices feel in theme with the game and are probably a whole lot better than if there was voice acting. Looking at the narrative of this game, without spoilers of course, I think the dev really nailed what he was going for. In an interview with a site called Canadian Game Devs, he said that this game was loosely based on coping with anxiety and self-doubt. That 100% comes through in this game, and then some. There's a lot of lines characters say that you can tell were aimed as being inspirational messages, or just them being anxious and doubting themselves. He also stated that it was loosely about how your relationship changes with your parents as you get older. I didn't get that feeling, except for the ending, but I'm not going to spoil that. As nice as the message is, it really wasn't subtle, and the ending felt like it was dropped on you out of nowhere to make you feel something. I didn't actually feel anything, as there was no build up to it. It's like if I told a story about a man chilling at home and the ending is his dog is no longer with us. That's not a hint at the ending, by the way. The story may not have been as heavy-handed as my example. This is again just my take on it. But other games have narrative designers, level designers, producers. Some, although rarely, have script writers. I'm sounding like a broken record, but this was just one guy. So for the resources he had, he nailed it. It's short, sweet, and definitely resonates with some people, and that's success in my opinion. I don't like to talk too much about the real world here at PlayThroughTime. You come here to listen to me ramble about video games, but I'm going to talk about games and the real world for just a little bit. This game wasn't for me, but I know who this game is targeted at, and I know there'll be people out there who really end up immersing themselves in this cozy world. Or potentially the story hits home for them where it didn't for me. After writing this review, I read that some people cried, which to me is one of the best reviews you can give without saying a word. Research from 2022 suggested that 88% of people aged 16 to 26 in the UK play video games. This came at a time where daily life for young people in the UK, in my opinion, was awful. There was nearly no hope to cling on to for the future or for the present. Gaming provided those people with a form of escapism, and this is one of those games. It provides people with that comfort, that coziness, and that feeling of going back to being a kid, you know, where games were fun and life was simple. Just a really important reminder, I am not an expert, and when it comes to your mental health, please seek help if you need it. Whether that's through friends, family, or professionals, gaming can be a nice form of escapism, but we all have to come back to the real world sometimes. To finish off on a lighter note, A Short Hike is absolutely brilliant when you consider the circumstances of its birth. When you remove those circumstances, you're left with nice gameplay mechanics, beautiful scenery, lovely audio, but a game that doesn't grab me and keep me playing. I think for you listening, give it a go, if you're able to. If it's not for you, you'll find out quickly. If it is for you, then you'll probably love it. Since you guys made it all the way to the end, thank you for that. Let me know in the comment section what your favourite cozy game is. I'm not much of a cozy game guy myself, but I used to be a big fan of Animal Crossing when I was younger. If I'm trying to get that nostalgic feeling, I usually go to Pokemon because that was my whole childhood in a nutshell. Thanks for joining me on this journey through time. Have a great morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, whenever you are, and be sure to check back in next week for some vehicular combat. See you then.